Welcome, everyone. It's just wrestling.
Welcome, everyone. We're live on the Fives of the Week podcast, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy Philly, as always. Tonight we're doing a WrestleMania special, so we got 3 new guests in the building. We got our boy Lotto, familiar face. How you doing?
No,
we got our boy Andrew back again for the second time.
What up? What did you call me the last time I was here? You gave me a name.
You said you were fucking Andrew WK, but you can't steal his name. No, I mean, it was uncalled for, so we're going to call you Andrew.
Fair enough.
And now we got my boy Gumpzilla, my arch nemesis in backyard wrestling. Here we are.
Oh.
Let's go, Mo Money.
You want to be Big Al? You want to be Gumpzilla? What do you want to be?
Gump's fine, man.
I like
Gumpzilla. Yeah.
All right. Gumpzilla.
Gotta
You
be.
backyard wrestle?
Yeah.
I was on True Life. I'm a backyard wrestler.
Are you serious?
Oh, hell
no.
yeah.
No, you didn't.
Go ahead and search it. True Life. I'm a backyard wrestler on MTV. And you'll see me there. I was a referee.
Wait till we're done. I'm
going to
check this out. Yeah.
We'll talk about. Well, we can talk about analysis for live. Yeah, it's the perfect time to talk about it.
I want to watch. I figure I probably watch it
Gumpzilla was
later.
at-
No,
SWA
I'll
champion.
show you guys in a little bit. I promise you.
Get it right. I was the last SWA World Heavyweight Champion. Still current World Heavyweight Champion.
1998.
He'll riff about this for hours.
Listen,
Practically Bruno Sammartino. He's not giving up the belt in 100 years.
you know what? It's WrestleMania, but might as well just talk about that too. You know what I'm
You'll
saying?
get to know this is my ego when it comes to backyard wrestling.
Oh, it's definitely your alter ego.
I love backyard wrestling. The only thing is, I was kind of a popular kid in high school. So what happened was all these kids, everybody's like, hey, man, you go over there. I'm like, nah, I don't do that. So when MTV said, hey, do you want to do your interview? You got to sign. I'm like, I'm not signing. So you'll see me in the background, but not in the actual conversation because I'm only in the background, which it's fine. I'm happy with that. But I didn't want him like, no, I can't have Susie look at me with this. Susie will leave me and dump me.
Actually, you know what? I know this is supposed to be WrestleMania talk, but do you guys remember, Andy, Mike, do you guys remember when we were practicing and those 2 guys came up to Garth Frost, asking if they can record like wrestling each other in the bleachers and all over the football field, and Garth was okay with it?
Really?
Yeah. And then come to find out, we found that just a brief clip of that video on the what was it, the Backyard Wrestling DVD that they had out there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Frost should have been a wrestler when you think about it. I mean, he basically looked like Bill Goldberg and Stone Cold Steve Austin mixed.
Yeah.
You know what I
And
mean?
drunk. I'll add that we taped all of those. And I asked recently who has the tapes. And you're like, I think you do. I'm pretty sure you do.
Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah.
And so I uploaded them all to my computer, and I did not put them on YouTube yet. And when I do, they will be on a closed channel, so nobody ever gets embarrassed.
Awesome.
No, put them on YouTube. What are you talking about? Come on.
No,
So there was no nothing funny? You didn't find anything from back in the day?
I don't think so. Well, I mean, there was a lot of the tapes that skipped. They
Yeah.
skipped and skipped. They were old. They were dated.
Oh, yeah. You remember that camera we had? It was like that big box recorder
Oh, yeah.
camera. And we had intro. We had bougie-ass pyro.
You did all this?
We did it all.
That's
We did it all.
awesome.
We had a whole federation, and
hell yeah.
us 3 basically ran the whole thing.
All right. So what was your wrestling name?
I was Mo Money Mike.
Okay.
I was basically Vince McMahon. Like I did Hulk Hogan, Vince McMahon. We had a mix of original characters and WWF characters.
And what was yours?
You already know it. It's Gumpzilla.
Gumpzilla.
he's still
Love it. I was the European Crusher.
That's a good name. I like
That's
that.
literally what everybody's like, yo, you're European, right? I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh, European Crusher. I'm like, I love it. And then, can you do an accent? I'm like, yes. He's like, okay, do the accent. I'm the European Crusher, and I'm here to crush you. They're like, this is a Russian guy. We love him. Let's go. I'm like, all right.
You were the Rusev before the Rusev.
I was the Rusev before the Rusev. Absolutely.
Love it. Love it. So, a lot to talk about in the wrestling world. Just a few things before we dive into the WrestleMania card I wanted to bring up to you guys. So, especially Andy, I know you're a big AEW guy.
I am.
Ooh.
So we have to have the conversation. You know me. Obviously, I'm a loyal WWE guy. And I'm going to kind of fall on that sword. But for the people that may be like on the fence, and tell the people why you enjoy it and maybe why people should give it a shot.
All Elite Wrestling. Well, I got into All Elite Wrestling because at the time I thought WWE was just not telling good stories and was just not doing it for me. We all grew up watching it. We all grew up enjoying it, have a lot of memories associated with pro wrestling, sports entertainment, quote unquote. But at the time, people demanded an alternative. And I was just very entertained by the in-ring action and still am. But as it's went on, they're creating their own stars. They are drawing crowds. the athleticism is like off the charts. I mean, you want to stack in-ring action together, WWE versus AEW. AEW is far and away more entertaining in-ring action, but it doesn't tell stories like WWE does, and that at the end of the day is what we all love.
Yeah.
Is
Right.
storytelling.
Absolutely.
Especially when you see a story like, we'll get into it when we talk about the main event, the Bloodline, the storyline with Sami Zayn.
Epic.
I mean, unbelievable. It kind of reels you back into like back in the day. Like, it was just such great storytelling.
Yeah.
I was hooked. I had to watch every week.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's kind of the reason I kind of fell out of it. A lot of botches in AEW, I noticed.
That's very true. Yeah, a lot of green wrestlers.
Too much blood too.
Yeah, that's a little overkill, especially with Moxley. He's been getting a lot of heat online about that recently.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, you don't want to see that every single time.
But that might change though, because I know like what I watched a little bit of it. I know that they just turned heel, and I actually found a night that he didn't cut himself. It's probably because he turned heel that night. So
No.
But I mean, for everything you can criticize about AEW, they've had their fair share of really fun moments, like Sting wrestling. It's a joy to watch this guy come out maybe every 3-4 months and just do a tag match and do all the old spots. And
Sure.
you know, you got Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone, and our childhood is firmly in AEW with a blend of guys like Kenny Omega, you know, guys like the Young Bucks, and athleticism and fun storytelling. But it's an alternative. They think and thought they were a competition to WWE. They're not.
Not
They're an
even.
alternative. You know.
I agree. I mean,
Well,
there's still superstars over there. Go
yeah,
ahead.
Absolutely.
that's Tony Khan though too, because Tony Khan, anytime literally when AEW Rampage beats SmackDown, that's on FS1. I mean, he'll go online and quote, "Hey, I beat WWE this night," but it's on FS1. It's not on Fox. What do you?
Right.
Come on, Khan.
Apples and oranges. Lotto, you don't seem like you're a fan of it.
You know what? It's not that. It's just, you know what? When WCW had their run and they were big back in the day and everybody was talking all about them, I did not care. I hated that all my favorite wrestlers went there. You know, we lost Kevin Nash at the time, of course, and Razor, the bad guy. That was my guy since day one. So that was like the only thing. And it's the same thing here. Chris Jericho was my number one guy in WWE, especially his late run, you know, with Kevin Owens, the feud that they had there at the end. And of course, the whole storyline with that. That was one of the best storylines I can remember. I remember like, it put a tear in my eyes when that happened. I'm like, oh my God, this is done very well. Kind of like the same thing that's happening with Sami Zayn now in the past 12 months. But yeah, it's just I did watch it in the beginning, and I was a fan, and I was a fan because of you know, the Cody Rhodes, of course, and the Aleister Blacks going there, and what's his name now? I don't. I know it's still
Malachi
Malachi Black, right? So like, you know, it's just I haven't really been following it. I'm a WWE guy all the way.
This is another song though. You gotta love Judas. I mean, the
Oh,
way they
yeah.
sung his
Yeah,
theme
absolutely,
song,
yeah.
that was amazing.
Absolutely.
You know
What
what?
was that, the big match? Didn't Kenny Omega just fight on Rampage or Dynamite?
He did.
He had a throwdown with somebody. Some of the moves they did was incredible.
El Higo del Vikingo.
Well said.
Look, I guess
I take that as a compliment coming from the Mexican guy. Yeah. How'd I do?
I
Did I do good, Bobby?
I think the one thing though, early on with AEW, I think some of the fun stuff though was, of course, the stuff with Brody Lee, and and the Dark Order. You know, they had, and unfortunately, you know, I mean, when Brody Lee passed away,
If you stack the pandemic era, the Thunderdome versus AEW crushed,
Right.
crushed
Oh,
the
yeah.
Thunderdome. It was so entertaining,
Right.
top to bottom, and that's why I was drawn to it, because you could look up and down the card any week, and it was entertaining from Jump Street, and you wanted to watch the next week. And at the time, this was now 2 years ago, I didn't feel that at all for WWE. And in fact, the thing that drew me back to WWE was the Bloodline and Sami Zayn. I mean,
Yeah.
that got me back hooked as much as we were hooked when we were kids.
Absolutely, man. All right, so we have our takes on that. Now I have to ask you guys about this, because this was like one of the ultimate highs of last year, and then right now it's one of the ultimate lows, and that's the return of Bray Wyatt and how this entire story has just fallen off the face of the earth. I was very confused there, weeks on end. Like, dude, I still go back and watch Extreme Rules. Like, that return was so masterfully done. It was the most anticipated return I can remember in recent years. What do you guys feel happened? I mean, what do you think the issue is? Do you think Bray is just that difficult to work with? Is he? I don't know. I really don't know at this point.
Too much creative control. So meaning too much of him wanting to do what he wants to do.
Right.
And his mind is so out there. And this is just me, my opinion, right? And I might not be liked from it. I love Bray Wyatt. But when you have too much creative control, and then Triple H was running the show there for a minute, he was like, yeah, I'm going to keep this guy happy and keep him here. Go ahead. Do what you need to do. But in the end, it just keeps on flopping. And I don't think even Vinnie Mac had anything to do with it before he left. I think it was more him and the writers trying to get in together. But to be honest with you, step back a little bit. Go back to that old school, those great promos, man, when he sounded like I was watching True Blood. I don't know if you guys ever saw that show, but when he sounded like he's from Louisiana, you know, with that accent.
Right.
You know, go back to that. That's beautiful.
We're here, John.
Do you think
We're
that
here, Cena.
do you think it could also be maybe overexposure? That maybe he should be more of an attraction than in.
That's definitely part of it. I agree. But I think the attraction part of it has to make sense, and his stories don't make sense logically. He also is a bit of a push killer. Like any person that's working a program with Bray Wyatt doesn't come out of the program stronger than he went in. I think back to that terrible Hell in a Cell match with Seth Rollins. It was just like one of the worst finishes in wrestling history.
Absolutely.
Ugh.
But that's, as you said, I think it's just too much creative control for the guy.
Yeah.
And thinking about it now, this match potentially with Bobby Lashley being off and not hitting the WrestleMania card, I feel bad for Bobby Lashley.
Yeah.
I mean,
Great point.
Bobby is as hot as he's ever been.
Yeah.
Love that guy, man. I went to a house show. The amount of respect I have for this guy to go around and hug and take pictures with everybody. Bobby Lashley has become one of my favorite wrestlers of all time because of that.
Wow.
Took a picture with me and my wife, grabbed my phone, and actually did a selfie. I got that up on Facebook too.
Wow.
You know, I couldn't believe how sweet and I mean, 15, 20 minutes. Everybody was telling him, come on. He didn't care.
That's
he
awesome.
wanted to make sure all the fans. I think it was 1,500 people there.
That's awesome.
Wow.
I dig it. You got the shit end of the stick here. Let's call it what it is.
Absolutely.
Because he's actually had a really solid year.
Well, how much of that though too? Because there was talk of being Bray and Brock putting the kibosh on that. Do you think might have to do with that?
I thought about that too, but you got to think from Brock's point of view. Like he's at the end, you know. So I don't know. I think he's been notoriously kind of tough to work with too. You know, he picks and chooses his opponents. That could put creative in a tough spot as well.
Right.
So you're telling me he picked Omos?
He was voluntold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the old man.
Oh, man.
Oh man came in and said, hey man, I need this big guy. I need this big guy, please.
Yeah.
He still thinks that's what sells. Huh?
Yeah. It doesn't.
But Brock's going to do whatever he wants, and he's earned that right. As far as Bray Wyatt is concerned, it's just, I feel for the guy. I guess has some sort of illness that is undisclosed. He hasn't been at TV, but we'll see how it all shakes out. I think we don't need to get too much into the hokey, scary, doomy stuff.
Right.
Like let's back it up a little.
Well, I know like there's talk for Bobby to have a match with LA Knight to be like a surprise entrance for Bobby, so that Bobby could still have that match at WrestleMania.
Well, what do you guys think of LA Knight? Because I personally think he's entertaining.
Yeah, I love
think he's a
him.
really good wrestler, and I think he's got a chance to be a star.
Yeah.
Well, from what I read, I mean, the backstage news is that after Mania, he's supposed to potentially get a push.
Yeah.
So
I enjoy him.
it's somebody to look out for after Mania.
You know, in the beginning, I saw him, and I had just got back into wrestling, right? And I'm like, who is this LA Knight guy? You know, 3 people that impressed the living heck out of me was Gunther, of course.
Oh, yeah.
God, Gunther's partner to the left, Mr.
Da Vinci and Kaiser.
Yeah.
Yep, Ludwig Kaiser. At the
Ludwig, yeah.
time, the bald gentleman. See, I don't remember their names. I mean, that's the only problem that I have with just coming back in is trying to remember everyone's name,
Yeah.
and not only that, but trying to do a podcast with it. But I was like, holy moly, who are these heels?
Right.
And then LA Knight comes out, and I go, what is this? Is this like a Rock or Stone Cold back in the day?
I'm just glad that they got rid of the whole, Max Dupree storyline for him. I mean,
That's who he was. You're right.
yeah,
That's who he was.
well, he was LA Knight in NXT, and then they brought him up to the main roster last year to be this male model manager, basically,
Yeah.
and it's like it just wouldn't work. And the guy's proven himself now I mean, the guy is entertaining.
Absolutely. Great on the mic.
I can't wait to see. I mean, that's big things coming from him coming up here.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of charisma, man. When you see somebody like that on your screen, and it almost seems effortless the way that they're interacting and communicating and cutting their promo. It's like when you know.
Yeah.
Right.
And he gives off that kind of aura.
He did a good job in the Bray Wyatt feud too, even in taking the L. I thought he worked that program very well. Yeah. And again, Mansoor, this guy's like the greatest, Middle Eastern guy to come over. Now they got him playing a gay model. It's kind of interesting. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
You guys get creative, do a little bit better, man. You know what I mean? So
Vince McMahon.
I can't wait for
you're just living in it.
Can't wait for Otis to take over.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing about it is in the end.
Mansoor, you look good in a thong. Yeah.
But you're going to have these, right? We had it back in the days with like the Val Venus and all this, right? So you're going to have the same thing. Look what they're doing. I mean, in the end, I was watching Raw and I couldn't wait when the girl grabbed Otis. I'm like,
over.
I love it.
It gets over. Remember the Funkasaurus?
Yeah, well,
that was over like Rover.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was no good, but
crazy. So, anything else before we dive into the card?
Well,
how about this? Oh, we got to continue what we were talking about.
Yeah.
So we're talking about WrestleMania entrances. I saw this video earlier on YouTube of the top 30 WrestleMania entrances. And before we started the podcast, you guys were guessing what number one is. I'll give you the chance to guess, but I'll tell you that the list was totally backwards. There was a bunch of entrances. You're looking at it like, how is this on the list? Alexa Bliss.
The only
How is this on the list?
The only one that I could think about that I loved was definitely Rusev. Right, back in the day when he came out with the tanks.
That was not on the list, and that was a great one.
How in the world is that not on the list?
So wait, did they have the Cena one from that same match then in that list?
No.
What about the Cena with "You Can't See Me"? The 102,000.
Wasn't that the one in Detroit?
Yeah.
No.
So Cena was on the list 3 times.
Okay.
One was WrestleMania Pandemic when he came out against Bray Wyatt acting like Hulk Hogan.
Yes.
How was that on the
NWO.
list?
I know. Then they did the one in Detroit when he came down in the Mustang and broke the glass, which is cool. And then
which one was this? This was on YouTube.
This whole list is on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
And then his "You Can't See Me" real John Cena one with all the 100 guys.
Yep.
That was number 2.
Yeah.
Really?
Seriously?
Yeah, I knew that
Number
would be
2.
good.
Wow.
Entrance.
I'm shocked because if it's not Triple H, which to me, I think that's number 1, right? Coming out with the motorcycle and Stephanie in the back.
That was
there's
sweet.
so many more.
I can't believe you guys have not gotten this yet.
Well, I like Cody Rhodes. I thought that was a pretty cool one last year.
That was awesome and on the list.
Was the Charlotte Flair one, the helicopter one, on the list?
Yes, it was.
Okay, that was
The
pretty
Hardy Boys coming back was not on the list, which was a shame.
Well, that's because they're AEW. They're trying to maybe maneuver away.
Is it the Undertaker when he had all the caskets?
No. The Undertaker coming out when he had all the hands, that was on there.
Okay.
And the Undertaker when he came out with the Druids at WrestleMania 14, that was on there.
Could it be so easy as just being The Rock and
Listen,
Stone Cold?
I will give you another clue. This entrance is on every WrestleMania highlight reel you have ever seen.
How do we not know? Are we not real wrestling fans, it looks like?
I don't
Everybody
know.
at home has it already.
Right.
They're all picking it. You dumb.
And it is not a recent entrance.
I say it's an old one.
Okay. That's going to narrow it. It's not going to be Shawn Michaels, is it?
Yes.
That was number 1.
Shawn
You're
Michaels.
talking about
From
you're
WrestleMania
coming
12?
down.
Oh, from the rafters.
I don't think
All
about
the
it after.
pictures,
Yeah, after
all
what
the
happened.
camera snaps.
Yes.
It was awesome.
That makes sense.
Okay.
After what happened,
going, is it really him? I want to ride.
I stopped thinking about it after what happened in that one pay-per-view with Owen Hart. So I don't look at anybody that's coming down the rafters anymore.
Fair enough.
Right.
Fair enough.
It's still not my favorite, though.
Yeah.
You know?
Understood.
Yeah, but you know what? Maybe in a way, though, too, because, I mean, we're now used to, like, entrances today where all the technology is, where it is now, and then it's just more simple. And
Yeah.
One funny one I thought was Triple H when Motorhead was playing, and this was WrestleMania
Lemmy was so wasted.
21. Lemmy was a mess, but Triple H came out from under where the band was playing, came out, had the big gold belt around him. Lemmy was to his left, the guitar player was on his right. Triple H is doing his thing. but he was on like a band stage, so he was like turning around in a phone booth, like he just looked awkward.
I was actually thinking the other one with Triple H and Motorhead from when he took on Taker. Yeah. Lemmy was just so you didn't even. It's all about. I mean, like you could tell he was just blasted.
Entrances are one of the more fun aspects of WrestleMania. My wife had her friend over the other day, and her friend, we were watching SmackDown, and she's like, has no idea what we're looking at. Yeah. And when I encounter people like this, I get excited.
Yeah.
Because like, you only know John Cena, right? And so I get fired up because I'm starting to explain what you're watching. You're not a wrestling fan.
Right.
100%.
And she's looking at me like, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's,
I watch wrestling clips all day long. My buddy just sent me the WrestleMania at Caesar's Palace where Hogan won against Yokozuna.
Oh, my
That
God.
finish was awesome. I remember as a kid being elated for that. That was awesome. And I sat and watched a 35-minute video of WrestleMania 17 between Rock and Austin.
One of the best.
Just the hype video alone was freaking great. The way they synchronized the fight scene with the beat of the song. The match was great. A lot of kickouts, and then Austin turning heel, which wasn't my favorite, but it was kind of a big swerve.
You know, that's another thing too about that match. Do you think they really should have had the heel turn at WrestleMania in Texas? Or do you think they could have held off a little bit longer?
Well, Austin said as much. He wished he never would have done it.
Yeah.
Well, I know that, but I mean, do you think it might have been different if he did it, like, say, the night after when it wasn't anywhere in the state of Texas?
They were going for the jugular, like trying to make it cut real deep, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
that thing was...
Vinnie Mac is known for this, right? Screw Brett in Canada, right? And then, now this,
But see, technically, though, that was not a Vinnie Mac call. That was actually an Austin call.
No, I get that.
Like,
but
I've listened to the JR podcast, and JR talks about all the time that JR was so against it that Vinnie Mac told JR, he goes, Austin's earned it. He can, he's at that level that he can do, he can make his shot.
Yeah.
So this was an Austin call. And unfortunately, no pun intended, because we're talking about Stone Cold, but that thing was snake bit from the very beginning. And then it led into, and now, obviously we had some funny times with Austin and Angle, and
he did what he could with it.
Yeah. And then, but then, we thought he was back with Team WWF at the time, and then he turns to go to the Alliance. And
you want to talk about big pops too. You remember when he was going back and forth, like, we need the real Stone Cold, we need the real Stone Cold, and JR going nuts in that arena, just going ape shit when he came back to help him.
Yeah.
And stunned everyone.
Did you guys?
Everybody.
It was unreal.
Did you guys watch that video of where Austin was trying to make Taker break? It was like right before the Invasion pay-per-view, and he's just, oh, dude, it's hilarious because literally Stone Cold is repeating everything Vince is saying, and he looks at Taker, and Taker's like, mouth something like, don't even look at me. And he turns over to Angle, and he does what he does. And you could tell, like, every time Austin, or Vince would say something, Austin would repeat it. At one point, you just watch Taker have to put his hand over his mouth to cover the smile. Like, he doesn't want to. He's trying not to crack, trying to stay into character.
That's
I mean,
especially him.
It's a classic. I mean, if you guys get a chance, I mean, it's hilarious.
There was a lot of funny bits there. So real quick, let's go around the table. Your favorite WrestleMania match, if you could pinpoint it.
Oh,
this one that comes to the top.
Oh, no, there's no debate for me. Rock Hogan.
Really?
Yeah. Oh,
really?
Wow.
I mean, I like in a way too, because him and I, Andy and I got to experience. But I mean, there. If
Don't
you
bring
still
that up to Mike, he's still salty about it.
sorry, Mike.
I'm over it.
But like, if you still watch it, like I still watch it to this day, and I still get chills watching that crowd.
Yeah.
Like maybe that match wasn't, what it should have been. Maybe it wasn't like a 5-star match that Dave Meltzer would consider, but like that crowd just made the match. And like every time Hogan would lay in, and he's trying to be the heel. And the fans are just like, we're cheering him. And every time Rock would, lay a hand on Hogan, and the crowd would just turn on him so fast. To this day, I mean, that's my number one all-time favorite WrestleMania match of all time.
It's a great pick.
And it really, to this day, that should have been the main event too.
A lot of emotion.
Like, no joke, it sucked the crowd, the energy out of that crowd.
Isn't he such a mark?
Oh, he
I
loves
love, I love,
I love the fashion, though. I love it.
I love.
I
that
mean,
you-
I mean, this it is. I mean, this is
Hey,
like
the flag is half staff. You got to say it, right? I mean,
it's full staff when I'm talking about it right now.
That's why you got it a little bit closer
Right, I'm
to the
just like,
table.
don't
but I mean,
crop
like,
it out.
I think he called it a
like
little
if you
Peter.
actually, but just watch that match after you had the women's title match. Right after that, there was like no reaction, and there was barely any reaction for Jericho and Triple H.
Wow.
Even after Triple H won the undisputed title.
I love that you just have that, right? You have it right. You knew right away because I'm going back and I'm like, my God, I can't even pick one.
That's my
I
pick, too.
really can't.
tough.
That's my pick too.
You
Alex
know?
stole my thunder. I won't wax poetic about it like he did, but he said it all. And now I would say that even though Alex and I were there and we saw it in person, and it was incredible. Even if we were not there, I think that match embodies everything you can love about professional wrestling
Absolutely.
in one match.
Absolutely.
Everything, and you can look at it from so many different angles. Now, my honorable mention would be The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels
Yeah.
at WrestleMania 25.
Exactly.
Another match you could say the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah.
And that was at a time when
That wasn't the Hell in the Cell, was it?
no, that was
Triple H and Taker,
That's right.
yeah.
with Michaels being the special
Is that
guest
what I
referee.
said? I said that, yeah. Shawn Michaels and
Taker for
Undertaker?
25.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
What was great about that, looking back at it, at the time you didn't see a lot of the false finishes that everyone takes for granted today.
Yeah.
And in that match, there were so many incredible false finishes where you don't kick out of a tombstone. You know, you don't kick out of 2 tombstones. I mean, it was just, and the crowd makes the match. It always does. You can have a stinker of a match, even though you plan it all out. If the crowd's dead, it's not a great match.
Right.
But that was one of those ones that you look back on it, and if it still gives you goosebumps to this day, they did their job.
Well, that's what I was going to pick as well. But the number one thing that I can think about is how I felt, right? Emotions wise. Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair. I thought that was
Oh,
huge. As far as emotions.
That was a fantastic match.
Absolutely. Telling a story is from beginning to the end. That's a match you want to watch. Another one that not a lot of people probably really care about too much, but I know how it made me feel. Seth Rollins coming out when Roman and Brock Lesnar. That
Oh, yeah.
at Tampa Bay WrestleMania when he won. Remember, he was a heel and got probably the biggest pop I've ever heard in a long time at that time, especially for 2000 late 2015s and 17 wrestling. I should
Well,
say.
do you realize that was the very first time that the Money in the Bank was cashed on in WrestleMania?
In WrestleMania. So that's what made it even more. So that's why it was such a huge thing. So I remember that because of the emotions it gave me. But Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, I still remember. I mean, like I said, when a tear comes out of my eye, you know it was big.
And let's not forget though too, like before. I mean, like Seth was in the opening match with Randy Orton and lost.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And that was and that had like one of the greatest RKOs that you could ever imagine, watching like Seth trying to do the curb stomp, and he gets up in the air and he gets just right for Orton to hit the RKO.
I just watched that again the other day. That was an amazing spot. It was awesome. And that pop was awesome at the end of Mania.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the match, people were kind of like they're done with it, right? They're done with Roman and Brock, and the pop was amazing. I'll never forget it.
I mean, when you have goosebumps, as you mentioned earlier in matches, I know I had it in that one.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many moments of WrestleMania that I've had goosebumps. Heck, it doesn't even matter. Royal Rumble. I mean, every pay-per-view event has done that for me. But as far as that, I would definitely say Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels. That'd be my number one.
I feel that, man. For me, it's that whole Stone Cold Steve Austin run when he finally won the title against Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 13. That was it for me. Man.
14.
14, my bad.
That's a good one too.
And then
That's a good one.
I was going to pick the Bret Hart one because he's got the iconic, blood running down his face and stuff, and that kind of catapulted him to superstardom. But him finally getting it done, Mike Tyson being involved, that whole era. Again, I was always a loyal WWF guy, so to see them kind of get the edge over WCW a little bit was awesome too.
Yeah.
And then an honorable would probably be the 17 with Austin and Rock.
Yeah.
I'm a big Stone Cold Rock guy. Those are my probably 2 favorite wrestlers of all time. But
Ditto.
yeah, that 13 match was awesome.
Can I add another honorable mention?
The
too?
Smoking Guns versus Mabel and Mo.
Oh, that was I love that match. Thank you. Stole my thunder, Andy. No, like last year's match with Seth and Cody.
incredible.
It was a great match.
It was a
Incredible.
fantastic match.